Okay, everyone, welcome. Thanks for joining us today, early in the morning, relatively speaking, for a webinar. This webinar today is on the Regional Energy Efficiency Database and on how to get the most out of this regional energy efficiency resource. I'm in the room today with a number of Neeps staff, Julie Michaels, Elizabeth Titus, Claire Miziolik from the Market Strategies team, and two of our interns, Catherine and Emanuela, are with us as well. Just a quick note that this call is being recorded today, and we will make the recording available as well as the slides. And then just a reminder for anyone who joined since I last made this announcement, you're currently muted by default, so please enter your audio PIN. That way we'll be able to unmute you and you can ask any questions. Also, please feel free to send any questions our way through the chat box as well. Okay, and moving forward. So today we'll be discussing what's new in READ. There's a number of updates that have been made over the last couple months that I want to make you aware of. We're going to talk about how Neep has been using READ to bring you state and regional analysis from across the region. We'll also be talking about how you can use READ. I'll show you how to access READ, how to visit the READ page, and what's available to you, and how you can use it on your own to do your own analysis. Also, more than welcome to get in touch with me at any point if you have any questions on that after the webinar as well, but just we'll do a quick tour. And I'll also talk about what's on the horizon. So what are our plans for the future with READ? You know, and what are we planning to bring you even more value through this resource? So here's the READ landing page. You may notice if you've been to READ recently that there are a few new tabs in the upper left-hand corner there, and we'll be going through those today. But I just wanted to review for anyone who hasn't been there lately, just what READ is and how we see it helping you and how we hope you'll use it. So READ is a dashboard for consistent reporting of energy efficiency program information. So savings information, expenditures information, air emissions info, job impacts at a regional level across the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. And its purpose is to develop transparency and consistency in the reporting of energy efficiency impacts in order to increase the credibility and understanding of energy efficiency in our region so that it can support various energy, economic, and environmental goals. And I just want to note that there is a new URL here. So the old URL will still work for a while. The neep-read.org will still work for another year or two, but we've recently changed it over to this URL, so just wanted to make you aware of that as well. And so READ helps build this credibility and understanding primarily by aggregating and comparing energy efficiency program information across states in our region. And I just wanted to mention, I was just at an evaluation conference, IEPC conference out in Long Beach, and we heard from someone at DOE that during DOE's support of EPA during the 111D regulations, the rulemaking, READ was pointed to at one point to show that the energy efficiency resource is real, and it was used to support the argument, I'm sure, along with lots of other resources and materials, but it was used to support the argument that energy efficiency should be included as a compliance option in the 111D rule. So just, you know, some exciting feedback about how READ is showing energy efficiency as a resource in our region. And so I just gave you a little anecdote, but, you know, why is a regional energy efficiency database needed? And you know, the reason primarily comes down to the fact that energy planning in the Northeast is regional. And so consistency in reporting of energy efficiency at the regional level helps support energy planning. energy efficiency can be looked at on a more equal footing with supply-side resources when it's looked at in this regional level as well. And it can support things like long-term energy efficiency forecasts, like the slide I'm showing you here. This is ISO New England's long-term energy efficiency forecast, but also air quality planning for greenhouse gas reductions and for state implementation planning as well. And so, you can see that when you report, when you can look at energy efficiency reporting at the regional level in a consistent and transparent way, it makes it really easy to see how that resource is contributing to the regional energy mix. So, I would say that, it's clear that this is the energy efficiency resource, particularly in New England, and that when you look at energy efficiency in this way, it's helpful for for that kind of planning. And so I'm going to ask quickly, how many of you have been to READ in the past 6 months? And I will launch a poll. 6 months ago was roughly February, which was about the time that the most recent set of data was put up in READ. So I'm curious to see how many of you have been there since then. And we'll just give it 5 or 10 seconds. Okay, so here are the results. So about a third of you have been, roughly half of you have not, and a few of you are not sure. Hopefully, either way, whether you've been or not, after this presentation today, you will have new reasons to go there and hopefully a renewed understanding of how READ can help you in your work. So what's new in READ? So for this, I'm actually going to jump out of the presentation, and I'm going to go into READ itself to show you around a little bit with what's new. So here we are. So the first thing I want to mention is that the first thing you will come to when you come to READ is a disclaimer page. And basically what it's saying is that the information in here is accurate as far as our knowledge is concerned, but that it just basically clears us of legal liability in case it isn't. And so you just basically, after you accept that, you are now in the READ page, and I'll let Julie Michael say something on that.
Yeah, so hi everyone, this is Julie. I just want to add to Pat's point here is that we do have a QC process we go through, and Pat does check in before we publish data. We receive data for electric gas. Before we publish it, we do share it with our point person for each state to make sure that the data is as consistent, ideally consistent with what's submitted to the commission in your state as far as annual reports go. So that's our QC process, and we don't publish it till we've done that. All that said, we still have this, we still have this disclaimer because it is to the best of our knowledge.
Yes, that's right. Thanks, Julie. And the other thing I'll mention is that we do coordinate with ISO New England on collecting the electric efficiency program information. And so that's why I showed you that ISO New England slide from earlier. We work together with them, which means that the same data that they're using in their long-term energy efficiency forecast is also the data that we're using in READ. So we do go to a lot of effort to make sure that the data are accurate. Our lawyers told us that we needed to put up a disclaimer, so we did. Great, so now that we're in READ, and I will pause for questions after I go through this section, so this just won't be me talking the whole time, but I wanted to first sort of tee up a few things and then take your questions after that. So the first thing you'll notice is that under the Reports tab, a few things have changed. So you can still click into the Reports tab just like you've always been able to do, and this is the various different reports that you can see and read. This is really the meat of the Regional Energy Efficiency Database and where all the data lives. And so you can see all the tabs going across the top there. You can also see, you can also click here on this down arrow to get to the different reports differently. And the reports are all designed to answer questions that we think and know through our conversations with you all that you're wondering about and all have. So this has not changed, but what has changed is there's a new instructions tab. So if you're not quite sure how to use the reports, or if you wanted to check in about a certain detail to see how you can manipulate the data, this also shows you how you can download the information, either the raw data, how you can make a PDF, or how you can pull an image into a presentation. So this is just some support materials that we've put together that you can refer to if you'd like to on your own. Of course, I'm always available if you have questions too, and you know, you all have my email because you got this invitation and are on the webinar today. The other thing that's new is an expanded report footnotes section. So one of the key tenets of READ, aside from consistency in reporting, is transparency in reporting. And so we want to make sure that you have the information you need to be able to interpret the data that's in READ. And so what we've done here is added 3 basic sections, and these are all anchor links so that you can get to the information that you need quickly. And so what's here is first information on what's included in READ. So READ focuses primarily on ratepayer-funded energy efficiency programs, but there's supporting information about how we handle other types of information that sort of falls in this squishy area where some people may think of it as energy efficiency and some people may not. So it describes how READ handles that kind of information. I'll go into that more in a minute. The next is information that applies to specific reports. So here are most of the reports that you can find in READ that I just showed you on that reports tab. If we just go to like the avoided emissions section, it'll jump right down to the avoided emissions section, and you can see exactly how we've calculated the average annual emission rates that you're seeing in READ. So scrolling back up, the last thing you can look at is state-specific information. So you can find information like which program administrators programs are included in READ, and other supporting information that might not be readily apparent. You can find that here. So we'll just pick a state. And so you can see, for instance, the program administrators that are included in READ, and then also a little additional information about Maryland's savings. So in this case, let's see, it says Maryland, so the last round of data collection that's currently in READ, we're about to start up for the 2014 program year, but the last data that's in READ is 2013 program year information, and as of that year, Maryland did not administer gas efficiency programs specifically. So it's just describing that, letting you know that, so that you can interpret Maryland's information accurately if you had questions about it. And then the last thing I'll mention on this page is that we went through a process earlier this year to determine how demand response program information should be included in READ. And what we determined was that, let me actually just click into that so we can look at it. What we determined is that most demand response in our region happens through the wholesale capacity markets. That's true for all of New England, and it's true for a lot of PJM as well, but Maryland does administer some demand response programs through the utilities, so at the retail level. But what we decided through a stakeholder process earlier this year is that READ will no longer report demand response program information that is reported into wholesale capacity markets. READ is started as an energy efficiency database, at least, and and with a focus on ratepayer-funded energy efficiency programs. And what we basically determined together through this process was that there were resources out there that captured the demand response program activity in more of a comprehensive way than READ does. It shows all of the information in the wholesale capacity markets instead of just some of it, what is paid for by ratepayers. So what we decided together was that READ will not include information on demand response programs that are bid into wholesale capacity markets, even if those programs are administered by a utility or funded by ratepayers. But what we did decide is that, there is a blurring of the line happening. I don't need to tell you all this, you all know this, between energy efficiency and demand response and even distributed generation resources as well. And so we thought it was important to not silo READ and say this is just an energy efficiency database and we're going to pretend that these other resources are not affecting energy efficiency and that energy efficiency can't help with, with a suite of things like demand response and distributed energy resources. We all know that it can. So we are including programs that have both as sort of a hybrid element. They have both energy efficiency characteristics and demand response characteristics. And I'm thinking about things specifically like behavior-based programs or things like smart thermostat programs. And so finally, the last thing I'll mention here is that READ reports also will include information on dynamic pricing programs that are administered by utilities. We want to see the impacts of those programs in READ. We want to be able to talk about them and analyze them. So we decided together to include that information as well. And you can see below that there are resources. If you have questions, there are resources that you can look at where you can look at demand response in the wholesale capacity markets through ISO New England, NISO, or PJM. So with that, I will pause and see if there are any questions. There's a few other things I'm going to run through in terms of changes in READ. But are there any questions on the demand response information specifically, since that's sort of a new thing this year that we've decided to do?
And those of you who entered your audio pin, you have been unmuted. If you have not entered your audio pin, you won't be able to speak because I can't unmute you, but you can also ask your questions in the chat box.
Hi, Pat. This is Greg Ripka from LDNL. And
hello.
Hi. Just one question regarding the demand response and regarding specifically which entity it is that you all see as being the one who collects it in a more comprehensive way?
Sure. So what we have linked to is information that is published by the independent system operators that cover the region we're talking about. So ISO New England, New York ISO, and PJM in this case. And they have a number of different types of annual reports and activity reports on market activity and things of that nature, which discuss things like how much demand is being reduced by demand response programs in the wholesale capacity market. And so we've linked to that. Certainly not, I'm not an expert on demand response in the wholesale capacity market, so if there are other resources that we should be linking to or other places who report on this information, certainly happy to add those resources as we become aware of them.
And Greg, let me just say, and for everyone's benefit on the phone, interestingly, the definition of demand response varies depending on who you're talking to. So we don't have the benefit of having ISO New England on the phone, but we did have quite a bit of discussion with Eric Winkler about this. And from his perspective, demand response, what's called demand response is what is dispatchable and not voluntary, and what's bid into that capacity market in our region. You know, whereas we know that there's other programs and efforts that utilities and program administrators are doing that are referred to as demand response, but they may be voluntary or non-dispatchable. So this is part of what we're trying to get at here, is clarifying some of this definition, and to the extent there's, you know, we'll look at what the utilities report when funded by efficiency programs, but separate from that, the only information we're aware of is what it does clear those capacity markets. So,
yeah, and the last thing I'll just mention, which I forgot to mention earlier, is that, you know, we realize that these sort of hybrid energy efficiency and demand response programs that include elements of both, and also, you know, price-based programs like time of use programs or critical peak pricing programs. These are all fairly new program types, and so the point of capturing them in READ is to look at them over time and to be able to analyze them and say things about them. So that's why, you know, that's something that we certainly plan to do as well. Are there any other questions before I move on to what else is new in READ? Okay, excellent. Well, feel free at any point to enter questions in the chat box as you think of them. You don't have to wait until these times where we're taking questions to ask a question. We want to make sure you don't forget. So the next thing that's new in READ is a new, we call it a State Documents and Key Info tab. And so we're really trying to build a one-stop shop for energy efficiency resources in our region. And this is, you know, one attempt to do that. We have other plans as well, but here what you can find is energy efficiency supporting documents like program plans, annual reports, and technical reference manuals for each state in our region. You can find them right here. Click right into one, click into many of them at once, and you know, have those resources at your fingertips. You can also find key supporting information and assumptions that go into the savings estimates for energy efficiency programs in the states. And there is a drop-down menu for each state in the region, but also if you click on this page like I just did, there are also links which will bring you to each one. So if we just pick one right at the top, I'll show you what kind of information is on these pages. So for instance, there's general information on reported data, so things like when the data is filed, how the reported data can be, you know, how it would be characterized. There's information on what adjustments are included in the gross estimates within that state, what adjustments are included in the net estimates in that state. Here's the supporting savings data and assumptions, the documents I was telling you about. So in this case, we have the legislation that enabled the ratepayer-funded energy efficiency programs, the TRMs, program plans, annual reports, achievable potential studies we also include here, and then anything else that we think it would be of interest in terms of a supporting document. So in the case of Connecticut, we link to their energy dashboard. You can look at who reviews and approves the data, what kinds of protocols are used to estimate the savings, how the programs are funded, and then finally links to other Neep resources like Connecticut's, in this case, Connecticut's policy page, which has a lot of supporting information on the policies in that state, the evaluation pages that we put together on the evaluation process within each state, and then finally a link to a repository of EM&V studies. So, you know, one place where you can find the recent EM&V studies that have been done in our region that's updated roughly quarterly. So there's a link to that as well. And then the last thing I want to tell you about is we've added a cost effectiveness screening tab. So as many of you I'm sure know, in the fall of 2013, the forum undertook a project to develop guidance for our region on cost-effectiveness screening. And that process was informed by lots of you, I'm sure, the forum stakeholders, and adopted by the forum steering committee in the fall of 2014, which means that the use of this document will be encouraged within all your states. And so one of the overarching principles of that document, or not, yeah, there were a few principles, a handful of sort of guiding principles in that document, and one of them is around transparency. So just being transparent around at what level are programs being screened at, what are all the costs and their values, and what are all the benefits. And so a standard template was proposed in that document, and it looks like this. And as you can see, it has information like what level the analysis is performed at. You can see the utility costs, the participant costs, and the societal type costs, energy policy costs they're called here. And then you have all the costs on the left, all the benefits on the right, and an assessment at the end of whether or not the program or the portfolio, depending on the analysis level, passes the screening test. And so this is a template that was in this document, and we are going to attempt to collect this data at the portfolio level during the data collection that will be starting this fall, and to see if we can get this information from all of you, and to have it available on the READ website under this cost-effectiveness screening tab. So I'll take another second for questions again, and also I'll have Julie mention something.
Yeah, and I know you're just if Pat, you can go back to that template table.
Yep.
We don't have time here today, and it wasn't our intent to walk through every bit of this and it's small font and so forth. But we can follow up and send you all, or you can readily find on our website the screening guidance that Pat refers to, and take a closer look at this. And as Pat said, we'll be following up with each state to gather data, and we would not publish any of this. We would have one for each state ultimately, and we would not publish it until it's been reviewed appropriately by states to make sure we're representing the information correctly. But if you have any questions on this, please do go look at the screening guidance, and the table is in the back. I think in well, it's table 6. No, this is for READ. I think it's in the.
No,
Oh,
that's what it is in the report.
Okay.
And you can find the report on our website, as Julie mentioned. You can also find it here.
There you go, on the landing page.
As well as the template.
Yeah.
Yep. So any questions on any of that?
This is Andrea Mancher. I just have a real quick one. Is there a standard methodology for calculating avoided energy costs and avoided capacity costs?
So,
I mean, because when you look at that, if one state does it one way and one program administrator does it one way and another, then you get mixed results.
No, it's a good question, Andrea. So, I mean, in the interest of ensuring transparency, that some of the documentation around this would be needed to make sure people understand what those underlying methodologies are. So, for example, in New England, there's a regional avoided cost study that's done every 2 years. And there's a document that's issued that describes that methodology, which may likely be different than what's used in Delaware or Maryland or New York, other states. So we would to that end probably bring some attention to how those might differ and specifically point to the supporting documents. Although I don't Yeah, I think in the Mid-Atlantic there might be state-specific studies. There's no regional studies to my knowledge.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Any other questions before we move on to how Neep has been using READ? Okay, excellent. So I'm going to hop back into the presentation now. Okay. And so now I want to tell you a little bit about how Neep has been using READ to bring you state and regional analysis from across the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. So the first thing here is a new product. We're calling it the READ Snapshot. And really what this is it's an executive summary of the high-level trends in READ that you can look at without going into the reports themselves. The reports are always there for you if you want to dig deeper, but if you're interested in seeing at just a very high level what the data are showing in READ, you can click into this. It's just a short PowerPoint presentation, and it aggregates the data up and shows it to you in ways that the reports don't currently show. So one of the main things is that it displays the data over time. READ has 3 years of data in it now from 2011 to 2013, and we have not yet updated the reports in READ to show trends over time. That's certainly something that we're planning on doing in the near future. But for now, if you're interested in some of those trends over time, you can look at this resource as well. Another is Neep's Energy Efficiency Policy Snapshot. So this is a brief overview of the energy efficiency policy in our region by the numbers. If you've seen it before, there's some new information in the most recently released one, which was just released in the last maybe 3 weeks to a month. I've been working on this with Neep's policy team, and we've included some new information. So for instance, now there are charts on the case for energy efficiency, so some easily referenceable charts, sort of powerful depictions, I think, of that show energy efficiency as being the least cost, lowest risk resource. You can see energy efficiency policy and savings goals from across the region very quickly. It's just links that link directly to that information right in the PowerPoint presentation. There's energy efficiency expenditures from across the region. You can see that in the lower right-hand corner of the slide. We have information from 2008 all the way up to planned budgets for 2016, so you can see kind of a nice long trend there. There's also savings as a percent of retail sales for both electric and natural gas programs. And finally, there's some information on energy efficiency forecasting. Like you can see there, ISO New England's energy efficiency forecast in the lower left-hand corner. And so this resource is updated twice a year, and the figures in this presentation are produced using not only READ data, certainly a lot of READ data, but also program administrator plans, annual reports, information from EIA, ACEEE, and also ISO New England. So it's a nice compilation that paints the policy picture of energy efficiency in the region. And if you haven't looked at it, I would certainly encourage you to take a look at it after the webinar today. So another policy piece that READ helps to inform is Neep's Regional Roundup. This is Neep's annual assessment of major policy developments in the last year. It has successes and setbacks from across the region. It offers comparative analysis of investment levels and savings, details shared challenges, and points to areas of opportunity. And it just addresses sort of the key policy issues that the region is thinking about in terms of energy efficiency. And so READ analysis is used to develop this at-a-glance box, but also various tables and charts throughout the report. And I have links to all of these things at the bottom of each of these pages, and so when we send you these slides after, you'll have an easy way to get to them. And I just went over three different reports. And so if you're a little confused about what the differences are in them, I would refer you to this slide. I'm not going to go over it here, but you'll have it here so that you can sort of see what the differences are and how they all kind of work together. So another way we've been using read data is to give presentations. The slide on the left is from a presentation Sue Coakley gave earlier this year at the Restructuring Roundtable. We use read to inform any comments that Neeps submits, and we use it in our communications, whether that be blog posts or emails or other types of communications. So we really try to incorporate the analysis, into the organization so that it can inform the various different parts of Neep and the value that we try to bring to you in those different teams.
And to that end, this is Julie. We're just to clarify the value of Neep. Of read for Neep is that we can present aggregated data either at a regional, sub-regional level or as part of our whole region, from Maine down to the district. And at the same time, it allows us to provide comparisons and be able to look across states. And Pat will speak a bit more about, better understanding some key differences. And that's an area that we continue we've been working on and continue to work on. But we, as Pat will say, some of the things that we do for public forums, public comments, education, information, we also get inquiries from some of our forum members asking us questions that we can then turn to read and look at data and be able to provide some feedback. So it serves multiple purposes, but at the end of the day, it's really about making information transparent and accessible for public consumption and information.
Yep. Thanks, Julie. So another thing that I've been excited about recently is I've been working with the market strategies team at Neep, and we recently worked together to release a short report on the residential lighting market. You all know, I don't have to tell you that residential lighting has been a centerpiece of ratepayer-funded energy efficiency portfolios. And if you look at that little graph in the bottom right-hand corner of the slide, it shows that residential lighting makes up roughly a third of all portfolio savings. This actually, in this case, it's across the region. And so between residential and commercial lighting, makes up roughly 2/3 of the portfolio savings across the region, and everything else makes up the other third. So, there's a lot of focus and a lot of focus and attention on residential lighting right now. And we've been hearing a number of questions over the last couple of years. Things like, has the residential lighting market been transformed? Where's the market headed? Particularly with the ESA standards, people are asking a lot of questions, wondering what impact has ESA had to this point, and what impact will it have in 2020? Is there a role for residential lighting programs in that environment? And what are the short and long-term priorities for programs? And so in this document, it's just 8 pages and it's got pictures. So we're charts and pictures. So we're trying to make it a very accessible read. But it sets out to answer some of these questions and to clarify the dynamics in the market. It talks about the impact of the ESA standards and what ESA covers and doesn't cover, and when, and makes a suggestion for what is the appropriate role for efficiency programs for the short and for the long term. So I really hope you'll look at that. That was just released about a week or two ago, and so I hope you find it helpful. We've already had some good feedback, which has been great. And I also just wanted to mention that Neep will be hosting a webinar on this as well. There's a link to the web to register for the webinar on this page. You can also find the link. Hopefully you've seen emails about this already. But this webinar is going to walk through the report, and it's going to we're making sure there's plenty of time for questions, so that hopefully there will be a good conversation about the residential lighting market and the role for programs. So I'm going to pause for questions in just a minute, but I just wanted to let you know a couple more things. Reed Research has been informing other work on residential lighting as well. On October 1st, I'll be leading a session at Neeps 2015 Residential Lighting Workshop, and the session will be looking at the different input assumptions that are used for residential lighting programs, things like delta watts, hours of use, and measure life, things like that. And during that session, we'll be exploring the reasons for the differences across states, and asking, having a conversation about whether or not there are opportunities for more alignment in some of these assumptions, or whether there are good, solid reasons for these differences. So the agenda and the workshop is available on Neeps' website. I'm sure you'll be hearing more about it as it gets a little closer, but we're certainly hoping that we are able to get some of you on the phone today to join us for that in Danvers. And finally, the analysis that will be presented at the workshop will also be part of the next residential lighting strategy update, which is due sometime out in the October timeframe. So now, with that, I will pause again to see if there are any questions before we go on to how you can use Reed. Any questions on what I just covered? I'll also mention that I'm happy to take questions at any point if if this doesn't feel like quite the right venue, or if you need to do a little bit more thinking and digging into what I presented today. That's fine. I'm always happy to take a phone call or an email. So okay. So with that, we'll move on.
I'm sorry. This is Andrea Matcher again from Delaware.
Oh, okay. Are
you looking at other programs that might have caused market transformation? I'm thinking like air conditioning and those kind of things. Is this just an initial look at one program, or? And so, I guess, how do you determine market transformation? It's an interesting topic.
Well, and helpful that you're asking this for the benefit of others. So. Neep is actually, it has a market strategies team here, and Claire Miviolik is sitting next to me, who is part of that team. And we've developed some market strategies reports around certain areas, and it's something that we are actually going forward are going to have a more focused effort on identifying priority areas for where the region can work together to transform markets, for what specific technologies or measures. And as part of that, similar to what you'll see in this residential lighting market strategy, market transformation overview is, how do we define as a region what market transformation means? And that's a really loaded question, and there's different ways to look at that. And what are the different inflection points of how we know the market's changing, and what data do we need to track as a region to see what progress we're making to transforming that market? And these are things that, as part of Neep's strategic plan, we're very focused. We were advised through our stakeholders as part of our a survey interview process that we ought to be looking at that more carefully. So this residential lighting piece is a quick attempt for us to say, okay, let's take a look at this very pressing issue around lighting. Given the best data we have, it's not the perfect data that we'd like, but it's the best data available, and apply this, identifying what is the theory of change, what is it that we're trying to answer for different technologies. So stay tuned, if you will, on what's going to be, there will be a process for us to identify with our stakeholders what are certain technologies or measures we should be focusing on going forward. So, Claire, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, one additional note I'll make is that we have a few things already in the works for 2016, and we hold working groups with Neeps sponsors to push forward these initiatives. But commercial HVAC is on the table. We're doing some initial market assessment now, and so looking at the market transformation opportunities for commercial HVAC, as well as residential lighting, home energy management systems, and industrial strategic energy management. Those are a few that are on our short list, but we're still in the finalization stages for our 2016 planning. So, so as Julie said, stay tuned for more information. But yeah, if you have any questions, I'm happy to help you out later, and Pat can make that connection.
Yep, certainly.
Thanks.
Thanks. Anything else? Great. Okay. So now I'm going to turn to how you can use READ. You know, READ is a public resource, and it's designed so that you're able to access it and answer your own questions as well, along with you know, having us here at Neep provide analysis too, and bring those findings to you. So we're sort of hoping that there's a nice interplay between you all being able to answer sort of questions quickly and at a high level, and at the same time we can come in and bring you that deeper analysis, and I will give you an example of that in a moment. So I'm going to walk through just a couple quick questions that I hear fairly often that people are wondering about, and I'm just going to sort of show you around the database and show you how it works. So the first one is, how much do states typically spend on EM&V? And so for that, you would click into the reports here. And there's a couple different reports on spending. There are two, really. There's total annual expenditures, and there's expenditures as a percent of total cost. And so you can answer this question by looking at either one. What you could do, this is not the simplest way to do it, but I'll just show you around, is that you can look at the different amounts that make up a portfolio. You can see over here that things like rebates and incentives typically make up the largest portion. There's administration costs, marketing costs, performance incentives, and then there's our research and evaluation dollars we're looking for. And so you can take a look and see that, you know, in this case it's roughly $11 million, and you could add it up compared to the rest of the portfolio, and you could get a good, you know, a rough estimate of that. The other report you can use is the expenditures as a percent of total cost, and that breaks down the different cost elements that are reported to and READ, and it shows you both on an absolute basis and on a percentage basis how much of the portfolio that makes up. And so you can do this for any year that we have in READ. So, you know, we can go to 2011 or, excuse me, 2012, and, you know, you can sort of see how those things have changed over time. You can also look at specific states, or you can look at it for different fuel types. And so this is a fairly quick way to get the answer to this question just by going into the reports. But you can also do this by downloading data as well. And I'll do an example of that in a moment. But if you click up here, you can see these 4 buttons at the top. If you click on this leftmost one, you can download this page as an image. You can download sort of all the data that went into making up these reports. You can download sort of a summary of the data that just shows the information in the same way that the reports do, or you can PDF it if you need to do that as well. So this is how you could get, you know, a rough estimate of that answer, and either through the reports or through downloading the information. So I'll move on to one more before I see if there's any questions. Another one I hear about is peak to energy ratio. So I'll just move our slides along so you can see the question I'm trying to answer. So how has the peak to energy ratio from energy efficiency programs changed over the last 3 years? So for this, we have a tab dedicated to this. It's the peak to energy tab, and it shows the peak to energy savings ratio over the last 3 years. And so I think for this example, we said New England. So I would go over to the state area over here, and I'll take out the non-New England states so that we just have New England left.
And for those of you on the phone from Delaware or the district, I think we just didn't have data. There was
in 2011 we didn't, and I'll switch over.
So if you see your state missing, it's not because you weren't included; it's because of availability of data.
That's right. That's right. So in different years, more recently, I think starting in 2012, Delaware and DC started providing data. One state, Maine, provided data in 2011, but hasn't since. So there's a little bit of variability, but to the greatest extent possible, we try to capture all the states in our region, and we've done a good job of doing that for the most part. So for instance, here's this is a way you can look at it in the report tab. But if you wanted to look at this information over time, as I mentioned, right now there aren't any reports that show this information over time. So what I would do in this case is I would download a crosstab, which is just a summary of the data. You could download more of the supporting data if you had even deeper questions. But here it is. It's just very, very basic information. And then if you wanted to, you could, let's see, this is for New England. So I guess I'd put New England here. And then there are the different states. And maybe what I would do instead is I would make this by year instead of saying ISO New England. And so I think I just downloaded, let's see, I think I just downloaded 2013 data. So I'll add 2012 and 2011 data. And then we'd go to 2012, download another crosstab.
So this is a little cumbersome to be doing this. We do have plans going forward, contingent on funding, to set READ up so that you actually can see all 3 years together.
That's right.
It's just that when we started READ, we had 1 year, we didn't quite have the budget to do that then, but the plan is to do this, but we do need another round of funding, which we have a request and a proposal into DOE to help support some of these changes.
That's right. And so, yeah, I was, going through that example, I just wanted to show you that there is background data there as well. If anyone would like sort of a more detailed walkthrough, I'd be happy to do that. In a couple more minutes, it would be easy to come up with a simple chart, but I think we'll probably just leave it there for now. But I just wanted to let you know that it's possible to go beyond the reports. There's a lot of data other than just what the reports show. The reports are there so that you can manipulate the data easily, answer some high-level questions, do it quickly, see differences across states, see how things look when you total them up. But you can also download the data and dig deeper and look at things on like a program level, program type level, things like that. So,
hi, Patrick.
Yes, hi.
So just a quick question. Could you go back to the READ database for a second?
Sure.
So one just quick suggestion. This is Nicola, by the way, from Efficiency Vermont. Is in this page, for example, peak to energy page, it would be really helpful if you had a high-level definition of what is a peak to energy savings ratio, just 1 or 2 sentences for those folks that are maybe not as technically savvy. Also, where the data came from. Is this data provided by ISO New England? Is it data provided by the utilities themselves and then incorporated in this report? Just sort of high-level, explanations right at the report level here on this screen, so that somebody can just look at it and understand the data right away.
Sounds good. Thanks, Nicola. Thanks for that suggestion. I just wrote it down. The way we have it set up right now, just so that everyone on the phone is aware, is that you would go to the report footnotes page. The thing we're sort of dealing with is we want to be able to have as much space as possible for the charts themselves, but certainly that needs to be balanced with transparency, as I mentioned earlier, and access to the information. The way we have done that right now is you would go to the report footnote to get that information, but I'll certainly keep that in mind. And thanks for that suggestion, because ultimately we want to do it in a way that works for you all. You know, so that kind of feedback is very valuable.
Right. So to clarify, we used to have many of the footnotes in the report page itself, but if you started adding a certain amount of states or you started breaking things down more, you couldn't see the footnotes anymore, and so we just created a footnote page that you link to.
Yep.
So that's where the definition is, and I believe it's an automatic calculation.
That's right. In this case, it's a calculation.
This data is simply taking the megawatt hours reported, the megawatts reported, and making a direct calculation. If that's, you know, if there's issue with that representation, you know, we're happy to take that methodology. We're happy to take feedback on that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Thanks, Nicola. Anything else before I move on to a few more examples of how you can use READ? Great. This is sort of more, you know, more for the air quality planners who also make up forum stakeholders. How much did states save in average annual CO2 emissions in 2013? You can see my notes there. I didn't intend for that, but let's go to the avoided emissions module here. And so one of the things I wanted to show you about this is that you can look at this information at different levels. So right now, since we work with ISO New England, we also use their program types, basically their way of categorizing programs. You'll see in a minute that we're planning on expanding that in the future. But you know, right now, this information is shown to you at what we call the program type level. If you're not interested in seeing it at that level, you basically just hit the minus sign, and then you can look at it at the program sector level. Or if you just want to look at it at the state level, you can hit the minus sign again. And then finally, if you wanted to look at it at just the regional level, you could see it that way as well. And so you can make these comparisons in lots of different ways. And so, you know, that's really the main thing I wanted to show you with this slide, this example. You can also filter out different states. You can look at only particular program sectors if you're interested in that, or you can do it just for particular program types. And right now what this is showing is average annual emissions for a given year. Neep is planning over the next year to engage with air regulatory representatives and with NESCOM to figure out how we can build a better module, a more complex module that has more information that air regulators need to be able to incorporate energy efficiency in air quality planning. So, you know, a little undefined before we talk with them, but things like, you know, forecasted data, emissions factor information. There have been conversations over time about whether a marginal emissions factor is the better way to show this information, or if an average annual emissions factor is sufficient. So those conversations are still to come. Certainly there's more focus on it more recently with the 111D rule coming out. And also there's a new round of ozone planning, a new rule that will be, I think it'll be either proposed or finalized in October. It'll be, yeah, So certainly we plan to support that need as well as an information resource. And so I'll just do one more, and let's go back into the slide here. So This is another thing that we show in READ. It's a little loaded, but you know, through the development of READ, it was shown that this is an important thing to show. Which states spend the most on energy efficiency programs on a dollar per megawatt saved basis, and who spends the least? And so we have this information in READ. It's developed through a common methodology, and it's very easy to get to and look at. And so you can see for all the years that we have here that you can look at, and this is for 2011 again, you can see the levelized cost, and there is a link again in the report footnotes that explains exactly how we, you know, with the form stakeholders determined the equation to calculate that cost. A consistent discount rate was also agreed upon in this area. And so, and this is a way to look at the dollars per megawatt saved across states. And one of the main things that I sort of wanted to point out here is that, you know, oftentimes what READ data does is it's a starting point for deeper questions and analysis. This information is useful because it aggregates and compares energy efficiency program information across states. And you don't normally get a view of information in that way, but READ enables you to get that view. And oftentimes, it, you know, it can answer some questions, but it also causes you to ask other questions. You know, looking at the data in this way makes things apparent that might not otherwise be apparent. And so one of the things that I'm really working on, and we're all working on here on the form team and at Neeps, is to bring you a better understanding of the differences that we're seeing, and why they occur, and what's going on. And the point really there is to facilitate information sharing. And so that's a key value that we see with READ, and bringing you that deeper analysis, like the work that we've been doing on residential lighting, is important. But certainly, this question is one we'll plan to look at, you know, in the near future as well. So with that, I'll stop again and see if there are any questions on what I've just discussed about how you can use READ. Okay, great. Well, I hope me going through that exercise will encourage you to click around on your own and see what data is really in there, and you know, see what questions it can answer for you, and certainly send me an email if you're seeing things that you're wondering about, because I'm looking at this information all the time and thinking about the questions that I want to have answered. But I always want to hear your feedback on this as well. This, you know, we really see this as your resource. You know, this is a resource to help you get the information you need to be able to do your jobs. Okay, so the last thing I'll mention, we're getting near the end here, is what's on the horizon? What are our plans for READ? And there is a READ subcommittee, so if you're interested in getting involved, for those who aren't involved already, to you know, dig into this more deeply, I would certainly encourage you to join us. But I'll just give you a general flavor of what we're thinking. So I just mentioned the first one, deeper support and integration with other Neep research. So we want to, you know, this is, we want to do that deeper analysis to help you answer those questions that I just mentioned. There are more projects in the works, and I hope you stay tuned for those. So another one is, I mentioned this earlier as well, we want to be able to show you this information over time. Now that we have 3 years of data and very soon 4 years of data, you know, I've been working with the policy team in order to show you some trends over time, and you can see them in the READ snapshot. But it's important, we think, to be able to show you these in the reports. The reason we haven't done this yet is because this is all contingent on funding. And just so that you're all aware, we have applied for a DOE grant back in March, and we haven't heard back on that yet, but we're hoping to hear back in the next couple weeks. So hopefully we'll have some news on that front soon. I mentioned very briefly that we plan to, we are looking into how to expand the program categorization structure that is used in READ. So right now we use ISO New England's program categorization structure, which does allow you to look at programs at a more detailed level than just the sector level. But there have been some initiatives, national initiatives. This is an example, I heard Greg on the phone earlier from LBNL, that LBNL uses. It's a way to categorize energy efficiency programs so that you can do deeper analysis on them. And LBNL has been doing deeper analysis at the program type level using this program categorization scheme, and has been coming up with some good findings that I would encourage you to look into if you're not aware of them already. And so, you know, we want to be able to bring this level of analysis to READ so that you can use it as well. But we obviously also understand that there's a balance between, you know, lots of data is useful, but there's also a burden to collect it. And so we're very mindful of that and are thinking about creative ways between what is it that we can collect here at NEEP and what part of it do we need to ask states help collecting. So that's on the horizon as well. I mentioned a more robust air quality module. This is what READ can show right now. You know, we have information on avoided CO2 emissions, avoided NOx emissions, and SO2 emissions, but we want to be able to bring it the next level given the increased focus in that area these days. And then we also, I'm sure many of you know about the EM&V standardized methods forms, that a project that Julie leads with CADMIS, and this is really about bringing transparency to the types of methods that are used for impact evaluations. And the standardized forms are used. They have check boxes and open response boxes. I'm not going to go into it today, but certainly happy to answer any questions on it if you do have any. But the idea here is that hopefully we're able to integrate those forms on the methods that are used to evaluate these programs, and also how they're reported, so that you can see how information is being reported in READ, and from there, if you see something that's interesting, you can go in and you can click right into the standardized methods form. And so we want to be able to present that reported data, the methods data, and sort of supporting resources like the ones I showed you today, program plans and the different assumptions that go into gross and net savings and things like that, all in one area to really you know, provide information on what's going on with energy efficiency in that region. And then that's married with you know, NEEP doing analysis with this information too and sending that out to you as well. The last thing I'll mention is that program year 2014 data collection is starting up very soon. Here's the schedule. I will be in touch with state reporting contacts soon on this. We set this up so that the data collection happens at the same time that ISO New England is collecting the data collection in New England, just so that deadlines and things like that are all the same. So that we'll be sending out the data collection forms September 23rd.
And let me just say one thing on data collection. We are well aware here at NEEP that for most states, data from you know, for example, program year 2014 was submitted and is publicly available earlier this year. We had some discussion with ISO New England to try and move up our data collection process so that their data, you know, their collection of data for their forecasting purposes could be sooner in the year, especially, you know, now that I believe most of the states in New England, their data is available by June 1st. And we were, you know, we were going to proceed with, we were hoping that it was looking like it was going to be possible to get the data and really have our data in read up sooner as a result of getting data more in the July timeframe. But for a number of reasons, ISO decided it was going to stick with its schedule from the past years, which is to collect data in the fall, starting in October. And we're very sensitive to not asking for the data, twice. We know that ISO asks the utilities, program administrators for data, and we don't want to, the reason we coordinated with them was so that there would be one data request. So to that end, we've been working with that arrangement because it's less of a burden. But we do hope, we still think there's room for discussion with ISO New England going forward to see if we can, try again to move up that reporting schedule, only because it makes the data available in read 6 months sooner than the schedule we're on now. So that's just an FYI that it's something we're aware of. We wish we would, have data already out and available for 2014, but until we've resolved that coordination issue, you won't see the 2014 up here until the end of the year, just into the first of January 2015.
I just have one more wrap-up slide. So are there any questions on anything that's been presented today? Okay, great. So I realize I didn't put my email here, but I will send you a follow-up with the slide deck and the recording. I just wanted to let you know about a few quick things in the works. The first is that a number of us at Neeps will be at the ACEEE as a resource conference in Little Rock in September. Hope to see you there. A number of us are on panels, including myself. I'll be talking more specifically about this integration of READ and the EM&V methods work. So if that piqued your interest, the little bit I told you about that today, please come to that if you'll be there. Be happy to talk with you more. And the last is we recently got the green light from DOE that they'd like us to present at a C-Action webinar. So I'll be working with LB&L and a few other national organizations and regional organizations potentially on consistency in EE reporting and the value that it can provide and the types of analyses that you can do on that. So I'm assuming if you joined today that you would be interested in that as well. So I'll be sending out more details on that shortly. And that is it. So if there are there any last things before we wrap up? Great. Well, thank you very much for joining today. There will be a recording available too if any of your colleagues weren't able to make it, and I'm happy to answer any questions or talk at any time. My email is twallace@neep.org. Thanks very much. Bye.